The August 17th, 2021 meeting of the Carlington School District Board of Directors is called to order. Marcia, would you mind leading us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Secretary, please call the roll.
Director O'Brien. Here. Director Zelensky. Here. Director Simpson. Here. Director Mendoza.
She's not able to be here tonight.
Director Pushkar. Here. Director Frank.
He is not able to be here tonight.
Director Hunter.
Here.
Director Apple.
He should be here shortly.
And Director Schreiber.
Here. So there's a time at the beginning of each meeting when we invite the public to address any items on our agenda for tonight. I see several people who signed up to talk about masks. Before we do that, I'd love to have our superintendent provide you with an update, give them current information about our health and safety plan, and then right after that, we can have public ask questions and comment on the topic of the site. Great, very good.
Thank you, Mr. Schreiber. Tonight's report will focus in on the health and safety plan. As you have noticed and have all been aware, as far as the health and safety plan, the district has followed the recommendations that have been provided by the CDC and also provided out by PDE, Allegheny County Health Department, and other areas as far as providing any type of guidance. Allegheny County Health Department, along with PDE, have shared with us that they have asked us when we go through and design our plans that we take the CDC recommendations and implement those recommendations into our plans. Different from last year, the Department of Health and PDE will not be coming out with their own separate set of guidance. They will be relying on us to take a look at the CDC guidelines in particular to go through with the implementation process. So tonight's agenda will go through and focus in on some of the updates that have been provided by the CDC, and then also take a look at some of the past recommendations and how that has an impact on the health and safety plan itself. On August 5th, CDC came out with a new and updated recommendations. In those recommendations, what they cited was due to the highly contagious Delta variant, that they recommend universal indoor masking for all students, all staff, all employees inside schoolhouses, grades K through 12, regardless of vaccination status. That has changed since the previous guidance that they had back in July that had the guidance set in place for masking was recommended for those who were unvaccinated. CDC continues to recommend 3 feet physical distance between students inside the schoolhouse. That has changed slightly since last year. Last year, if you recall, the district took the approach of maximizing distance among students, which we currently are doing again this year. But last year's distance was 6 feet. Now they've moved that down to 3 feet. But as we mentioned before, we're going to continue to space our students at maximum spaces possible. When it's not possible to keep within that 3-foot boundary and those limitations, CDC asks for guidance and suggestions on putting layered types of protections in place. And some of those things such as cleaning mechanisms, flow of traffic within the building itself, and a variety of different strategies that we've implemented into our plan as well. So as far as alliance there, that we're good as far as that component there. The impact then with the prior recommendations, back on in July, the CDC had some guidelines that were put into place in regard to close contacts. Close contact has also changed since last year as well, as far as defining who a close contact was. In the past, it was that 6 feet difference between individuals if you spent more than 15 minutes cumulative throughout the course of a school day or outside the schoolhouse. Anytime in general where you're within 6 feet of somebody else for a cumulative time of 15 minutes throughout the day, you would be considered a close contact if that other individual tested positive for COVID. Slightly changing now, the exceptions to that, the CDC brought out within the schoolhouse so that in the school, if you are separated by that 3 feet to 6 foot difference now, if students in the school are fully masked, then they are not considered to be a close contact. That's a big difference from last year to this year, which will have an impact then on the number of students that we have to quarantine. Last year, there was a substantial number of students across the course of the school year that were required to quarantine based on close contact within that 6 foot radius, regardless of whether students were wearing a mask. So contact tracing requires school officials and school nurses to take a look at when the individual person was infected, first became symptomatic, go back 48 hours prior to that, and to identify close contacts. So as mentioned, as far as being able to identify what a close contact is, in the school setting, if they're within 3 feet of each other, if the students are wearing masks, then they would not be subject to quarantine. However, staff and employees run through a different protocol in regard to that. If they are within that 6 foot radius, then they are required to quarantine. As far as exceptions to that, there are exceptions set out by the CDC. Those have been fully vaccinated. If there is an exposure due to a positive case in the schools, if the individual is fully vaccinated, then they may not need to quarantine. The exception there would be if they were within that identified as a close contact, vaccinated, however, they had symptoms, then that person would be required to quarantine, get a test within 3 to 5 days, and then return after they are asymptomatic for that period of time. Also up to, which is not necessarily spelled out in the CDC, but working with Allegheny County Health Department, is that if an individual who has had COVID within the past 3 months, that person also possibly does not have to go through and be quarantined. That would be something that we would share with Allegheny County Health Department. They would go through, review their records just to verify that the individual did test positive for COVID within the past 30 days or past 3 months, and then make that decision and help us through that process. So again, the stress there is our main emphasis from last year to this year is to try to maximize the amount of time that our students spend in seats in front of our teachers, and knowing that if students are fully masked throughout the school day, then there's a very rare case that they are going to be required to quarantine. Other agency updates that we received was in our original health and safety plan was that Allegheny County was originally going to work with us to help provide antigen testing, that we would be able to provide testing protocols during the school day. If we had a child who was symptomatic, we'd be able to give a nasal swab and go through and be able to test that specimen and to find out whether the individual was COVID positive. That, of course, would come with parental consent, and we would reach out prior to parents ahead of time before we would administer any type of assessment. Allegheny County is backing out of that, and the reason that they did that was because they knew that the state of Pennsylvania and also the federal government was going to work on testing protocols to come out with. So since that time, since Allegheny County has backed out, Pennsylvania just sent out an email yesterday that went through the process, that how they're going to support the testing process. And they're working through Concentric by Ginkgo Bioworks, who will be overseeing the testing process. The district, we will reach out to them to determine what types of testing procedures that they have in place. They have a whole menu that goes anywhere from cohort testing, where you can test classrooms at a time of students, and the whole way down to just simply individual types of tests that we were planning to work with through Allegheny County Health Department. In reviewing some of those plans, I think we're more in favor of getting parental consent. It's more or less a service that we can provide to our families, that if if you want to have your child tested here at school for COVID, you would be able to do that by signing off on a form, but not taking a look at full classrooms and going through and getting samples from students during the school day. Allegheny County superintendents also had the opportunity to work with 2 pediatric physicians from Children's Hospital this past week. They were in on a Zoom meeting with all of us. It helps to hear some of the local information and the local impact that is going on with our hospitals. Some of the things that they shared with us is that rates are definitely increasing for students, children age in their ICU units at the present time. And what they're also noticing is an uptick in MIS-C, which is the multi-system inflammatory syndrome that attacks major organs and inflames organs within the body of the children, which can cause naturally significant issues down the road. What they're finding there is cases are coming up where children were asymptomatic in the past, has an impact about 30 days after that they were actually positive, and that's what's taking up a majority, or not the majority, but a large number of beds in their ICU units at this time. The analogy that they made, the one doctor indicated that if this is something that we can prevent, it's something that we should look at to prevent. He didn't get real specific. I followed up with a question to provide guidance for schools at what their recommendation would be. His number one recommendation was the wearing of masks in the schools. His second recommendation was followed up then by vaccinations. He made the comparison to how we've responded over years to different types of things in society, car accidents and different types of things where we've had car accidents, seat belts have come into play. Those are the kind of things that as preventive type of maintenance that you put in place to help protect individuals, and made that analogy there. August 16th, correspondence from department indicated that, as I mentioned, the COVID testing would be available to us. Again, we'll follow up on that. Also recently with that, the Department of Health has mandated that all vaccine providers that are in the area, that they make themselves available to school districts for vaccine clinics to put on. Since that time, both Children's Hospital and Rite Aid have reached out to us to indicate that they would be available to host vaccine clinics here at our schools. That is something that we did last year. We hosted those. We got fairly decent responses to our survey have indicated that individuals have taken advantage of the vaccine. So we'll continue to do that, especially if we get to the point where they approve a vaccine that is under the age of 12. We'll continue to run vaccine clinics for those who are interested in receiving the vaccine. Then as recent as August 16th, transmission rate in Allegheny County is defined by the CDC was upgraded from substantial to a high level of spread. When the CDC goes through and takes a look at moving those, the 4 different levels, of are the low, the moderate, substantial, and high spread of transmission rates. Basically what they're looking there for is the new cases based on 100,000 people in that area. So based on that information, we're now at the highest, is the highest level based on the low, moderate, substantial, and high spread. So changes that we have on tonight's agenda based on the updated guidance and review of our procedures and policy was we broke it basically up into 2 categories in regard to the wearing of masks. And in the health and safety plan, it identifies that when the transmission rate in Allegheny County is defined by the CDC is at the high or substantial level, then we will require masking across the board for students in grades K through 12 along with staff members. When the transmission rate is identified as low to moderate, we will revert back to what we recently had in our health and safety plan, where masks are required at the elementary, but then they are recommended for unvaccinated at the senior high school. And again, that policy, as we mentioned before, would be reviewed upon the availability of vaccines for those 12 and under. Other aspects that we reviewed and updated in regard to secondary students having access to locker rooms. Students will have access to locker rooms. They will be able to change for physical education. They will be able to participate in swimming. We also added some language in regard to parent volunteers, that parent volunteers will be able to come into the building to help and support. We've relied on parents quite a bit over the years to help provide services to our students. So parents will be able to come in and volunteer, provided that they wear a mask, and approved by the building principal. And if available, we will serve as an antigen testing site. That continues to be on there. The language was slightly modified just based on we're not running through Allegheny County Health Department, but we did put that it would be run through an accredited agency. And now that accredited agency, from what we learned, is going to be the Ginkgo place. The plan then goes into effect on August 19th, which would be this Thursday. That is the update in regard to the health and safety plan. Just some other quick updates that I did have as well. Wednesday, August 18th, we do have the Chill Project back to school. This is an opportunity for students and parents who attend Carnegie Elementary School to visit Carnegie Elementary School and learn a little bit more about the Chill Project. The Chill Project itself teaches and works with students from a counseling perspective, also teaches skills in mindfulness, helps students deal with a variety of issues in regard to stress, anxiety, success in the classroom, and so on. Representatives will also be available from Pittsburgh Literacy and also Hello Neighbor, which are two organizations that we recently partnered with to assist some of our ESL population students to help transition into the area and set them up with some solid mentors. Also, Thursday evening this week, we have our orientation for our incoming 6th graders. That'll be here at the Junior Senior High School auditorium. And we did have, our schedules have been released in Power School for all of our junior and senior high school students. So parents who are interested in taking a look at their child's schedule for the upcoming school year, they are available in Power School. That's what I have for my report this evening.
Any directors have any questions on the report prior to opening the public question? Let me grab the assignment sheet and we can just go off of that. If you're still interested in speaking, I'll just go off the list of signups. If you want to come up to the front, just announce what your name is. We have a podium. We have a podium here you can stand at and address the board and answer questions. First up, Stephanie Mangan.
Easier to stand here at the podium, or?
If you're comfortable with the podium, that's fine.
That's fine. So I am here to protest strongly the mask mandates. And this board and administration put out a survey for the parents. And when surveyed, the majority of the parents did not want this either. And I believe it should be the parents' rights to decide what we are doing with our children. I'm entrusting my children to this district for 6+ hours a day, and you've taken away that choice from me. You've actively chosen to ignore the wishes of the parents. So I'm here to plead with your sense of logic and reason. Right now, this policy is not rooted in any science or data. I've not heard any of that. Even in your discussion with the Department of Health, I didn't hear any specific, because it's just, we recommend this. And right now, just to remind everyone, there is no state mandate for masks, and there is no public health emergency at this time. And so when emailing pages of data to this board, petition of over 100 signatures, I've been met with crickets. So I recognize that I'm standing against a barrage of, very heightened emotion and fear right now, kind of clickbaity headlines that's gripping many of us with fear. And cases are on the rise, I recognize that. But how many of us are looking past those clickbait headlines and actually looking at the data? I pulled data from the Allegheny County Health Department just this morning. And so we have hospitalizations by age and sex. Way at the bottom, there is a flat line of the ages of the children that you are demanding wear a mask. It is a flat line. There hasn't been a documented case of hospitalization since early June. And then when I look at deaths in Allegheny County by the group that we are mandating wear a mask, it is a flat line. The number is 0. This is what we're basing our policies on. And so, is it the policy of this administration to make these hasty decisions based on this fear and this, it's these headlines. It's what this media does to us. It's got us so separated, and it's a shame that it's come to this. I've been called some really nasty things because I want my kids to breathe air like normal. So, how do we get better than 0? What is the criteria here? And if we're going off of this, we're going to be masking forever. When does this end? And so, for comparison, if we look at the 2009 H1N1 outbreak, it killed an estimated 910 to 1,800 children. That is at least triple the amount, and we did not have this level of hysteria. So why masks? In the absence of any data or science, there are no conclusive studies, no clinical-based studies to show that it actually does anything. I have to conclude we're doing this so that we feel better about ourselves. But has anyone suggested that we stop driving cars? Even with seatbelts, it kills more children than COVID. Have we suggested that we stop teaching our children how to swim? That kills more children than COVID. Have we suggested that more parents focus on feeding their children vegetables and fruits, getting exercise, putting down the donuts? These are all actions that would do much more to save children, to keep them safe, than putting masks on them. But masks are a nice visual, easy way for us to say, look at me, I am doing what I can, I care, or I care about children, as if we don't, as if the parents who would like to see their children go back to normal don't care about children. We do very deeply, and I'm appalled at the people who have made the suggestion that we don't. So, we're just kind of going along with all this without questioning where is the science and the data. So not only am I very concerned about how these policies are decided, I'm concerned about the why. So in this last year and a half, as I mentioned, there are no clinical studies on masking. And then we get headlines from New York Times. We studied 1 million students. This is what we've learned about masking. And 2 doctors from Duke University studied masks in North Carolina. When you actually look at that study, when you look at past the headlines, it actually states, because North Carolina had a mask mandate for all K-12 schools, we could not compare masked schools to unmasked schools. There was no control group. What is this science? Where are we getting this information? And so earlier in the Senate hearing, like 2 Fridays ago, with the Department of Health and the Department of Education, the senators had posed this question to Allison Beam of the Department of Health, and she basically said, well, masks are just part of many layers of protection against COVID. They're just layers. It's just another thing that you can do. There was no science or data added to that as to why we're doing this. It was just thrown out there. So the CDC's recommendation is just that, a recommendation for us as parents to take into consideration. My children had COVID. I know how they handled it. Everyone is doing just fine. I, as a parent, should be able to say, we are done with this. But I feel like this is just a never-ending cycle. And when you look at those box of face masks, or even the beloved ones from Old Navy, it actually reads, this is not an FDA-approved product. This product makes no claim of antimicrobial protection, antiviral protection, particulate filtration, or infection prevention or reduction. This product is not intended for use in a medical setting. So what authority does the school board and administration have to mandate a non-FDA approved, non-medical, untested, unstudied rag that covers my child's mouth and nose for 6 hours a day? And again, I remind everyone, there is no state mandate for masks. There is no emergency declaration. In that same hearing with the Department of Education, Department of Health, the legality was questioned, and they did not have an answer as to what legal authority you have to force these things on my children. And so if you're going to force my children 6+ hours a day that I'm entrusting with you, you'd better have some amazing legal and medical data to support this, and we don't. So we've already ruined a year of these kids' lives. Last year was a hot mess. I as a stay-at-home parent, I work from home. Our children were sent home a ridiculous amount of time, and it was not good for anybody. And so we're going to go into another year and experiment and see. Let's see how kids fare with masks 6+ hours a day. Now that we have a viable vaccine available for all adults, and everyone over the age of 12, it's time we let these kids return to normal. Masking children for 6+ hours a day is not normal. Their educational experience at this stage is crucial, especially in the areas of language, communication, reading, writing. 2 of my kids are in speech therapy. How are they supposed to improve if they can't see their teachers reading, can't see how they are articulating language? And we don't know any of this because there have been no studies done for any of this. So our kids are the guinea pigs in this shameful experiment. And I'm done with my children coming home with these drool-soaked masks on their face. I'm done wondering what happens when they go to the bathroom with these things. They're flushing the toilet. You know, where are those particulates going? Are they touching their masks afterwards? Are these germ-soaked things just sitting on my kid's face for how many hours after they've used the bathroom? It grosses me out. And I promise you, these kids at this age are not wearing them properly. They're not. You're supposed to not touch your face. I know adults have a difficult time with that. We're touching it. It's going under our nose. They're all over the place. So any protection that we thought that we might have had with these things, these kids are not wearing them correctly. And so I'm very over adults treating my child's bare face as some kind of biological terror. That has been said to me. That is a real thing that's been said to me. And so my child breathing fresh air is not a threat to anyone, and we need to be done treating them as such. And so I urge you to please reconsider what you are doing for our children. My children I'm entrusting with you for an entire year, and let this be up to the parents for us to decide how we protect our kids and what we do with them, or else we're not going to entrust you with our children again.
Thank you, Stephanie. All right, I thank everybody for listening politely to Stephanie and Ms. Bannon. And I forgot to mention, officially we have a policy that there's a 3-minute time limit on every comment. Historically, we have not enforced that, and we don't intend to enforce it tonight, but to respect everybody's time, if we can keep our comments as close to 3 minutes as possible, that'd be great. I also applaud all of you for being respectful of her time and giving her the choice to speak and sharing her thoughts, and we're going to try to do the same. So there may be people here that agree or disagree with the speaker, and thank you all for giving Ms. Bannon the opportunity to share her thoughts. What else am I missing, if any?
I think they're supposed to say what they want to.
Thank you. If you can share your address for the school secretary record when you speak, that would be great as well. But other than that, thank you for sharing your thoughts. Next on our list, Reese Smith.
Reese Smith, 50 Walnut. Yesterday, I sat down and I wrote a big, whole, passionate speech about why we shouldn't be masking our children. I wrote about the side effects and the long-term damage it can cause them developmentally. It was kind of like Ms. Magnus' speech. And then at bedtime, I watched the news, and I realized you aren't going to care about that. The news has everyone convinced we're all going to die of COVID, and that you would gladly trade developmental delays for life. So instead, I'm going to talk numbers. These numbers are from the PA Health Department, the Allegheny Health Department, and Carleton's own website, all readily available for you to check. All numbers are as of 8/16/21. Since the beginning of this pandemic in the state of Pennsylvania, there have been 1,246,014 reported cases of COVID-19. I say reported because I'm sure there were others who had it that didn't go to the doctors and didn't get swabbed. And also there were people who were asymptomatic who didn't even know they had it. 96% of these people were reported recovered. 96%, and that number could even be higher. I'm not going to get into failed governmental policies. We all know what happened. Just know that between those who didn't get tested and those who didn't even have it or didn't know they had it, the number could be high as 98% recovered. Let's move to Allegheny County. So far, there have been 105,805 reported cases. Of those, 103,787 have recovered. That is a 98% recovery rate on reported cases. The next set of numbers are for us and the 10 boroughs that immediately surround us. We have had 6,480 reported cases since the beginning, with 6,393 recovered. That is a 98.6% recovery rate. But if you look at just the last 3 months, we have only reported 353 reported cases and 353 recovered. That's 100%. Now let's talk about our district. Since the onset, we have had a 99% recovery rate. In the last 3 months, we have had a 100% recovery rate. If we look at just our school itself, it has had a 100% recovery rate. So yes, if we don't wear masks, we may get sick. We got sick while everyone was wearing masks. Fewer got sick when we took them off due to the vaccinations and natural immunity because so many people have already gotten it. If you want to keep the desks 3 feet apart and have the kids wipe them down before they leave the classroom, great. Encourage hand washing and overall cleanliness, fantastic. But the mandatory masking is pushing it too far. If you're sick, you stay home. If you're worried, you wear a mask. If you're petrified, do cyber school. Our children have already fallen so far behind, both intellectually and developmentally, and we have no idea what another year of making them wear masks might actually do to them. Instead of following the science, which changes every day, how about we follow the math that paints a clear picture?
Next up is Reese Smith.
Do you guys mind if I speak last? Because I have a different topic for mine, actually. If you look at the paper, I'm going to a different topic.
Gotcha. Okay.
So can I speak last?
Sure. Yep. Season.
I guess there's only one season in it.
Hello. I pretty much agree with a lot with what Stephanie said. I've pretty much been barraging you with emails since I heard this was going to be the direction we were going to take. When we heard that the mask mandate was going in with the kids in the fall, we were in Florida at the time, which seems to have some common sense when it comes to this. So all of our family members couldn't believe it. They were just like, why are you doing that? I'm like, it's Pennsylvania. So basically what I have to say tonight is similar. I mean, you guys did a survey, which I never got in the mail, so I never got to vote in it. I would have said no. I would have said I was okay with my kids not being masked. We've had COVID. My kids have natural immunity. We have natural immunity. I'm not super concerned about them giving it to anyone. Currently, the county stats were quoted. Vaccination rates are pretty high in PA. If you count in natural immunity to that, we're closer to 75%, which is pretty good. Nobody talks about herd immunity anymore, but that's what used to be our goal, and I'd say we're pretty close to it. In the UK this year, they are not going to mask their kids. They're not masking them in Norway. They're not masking them in Sweden. All the places that have been ravaged by the Delta variant, they are not looking at the Delta variant and going into the school year saying, we're going to just mask everybody. They've actually found by their own studies that it's actually detrimental to the kids. Aside from all of that, I want to talk to you as a parent of a child with autism, okay? Masking, to me, with my daughter with autism means she hides her face, she doesn't understand social cues, any of those things. She struggles socially. She was sick for 2 years, we struggled, we fought to get her back into school this year, and now she wears a mask, and now all of the social skills that she needs to be working on, she can't, because she can't see your face. She can't learn how to do all of that. She can't work on her social skills if she can't see your smile. She can't see what other kids, especially other girls, I don't know if you know how mean other girls can be, but to an autistic girl, it's difficult. It's a really tough environment to be in. You stick her in there with a mask, do you know what she's doing it? She's using it as a whoopee right now. She loves her mask because she doesn't have to see anybody's faces, she's withdrawing and she's hiding with it. So what we're doing is we're giving my child a crutch, and it's bad for autistic children in general to have them masked because of the social skills things that they need to be working on. And integral to that is seeing facial expressions, which they cannot see with the mask. So I haven't heard at any point in time any studies on this community in terms of like spread to communal spread. Like this is something I've looked at a lot. Is it true that if we don't mask our kids, we're going to have a spread in the school and it's going to spread in the community? And I have yet to see any studies that prove, internationally or nationally, that there's communal spread from schools. And what I mean is like an outbreak here that then spreads out into the community. I haven't seen that, and I haven't heard anything from you guys that that is an actual thing that we're considering, that we're worried about. Like, everything that was quoted seemed to be that, like, you know, that's not an issue. So, like, we can talk about all the other things, and I'm in favor of not masking, and I would ask you to reconsider this, not just because of the facts that are out there, but because of, like, as a parent with special needs kid, this is really bad for her. And it's not going to help her developmentally. It's only going to set her back. And she missed 2 years of school being sick, and this isn't going to help. It's just going to continue her downward spiral socially. Just ask you to reconsider.
Thanks. there have been a couple of folks that have commented on the medical studies, and we have received studies that have looked at masking and specific to the Delta variant. And I believe there are some school districts around the country that have reported communal spread. I'm not a medical doctor, and so I can't vet those, but there appears to be, and so some of those news reports is informing our approach.
Well, if you're going to quote those, if you're going to cite those news
This
sources.
is public comment
Huh?
when you're on the list.
Okay, I will. I'm just saying, send them out in an email to everybody.
Well, we
Then
can
we
post
can
them on our
actually see
website.
proof that you're
That's a
citing
fair-
instead of,
That's a fair point.
fairy tales, you know?
Sure.
I mean, it's easier that way.
That's a fair point. Next on the Smith on the list is Thad.
Hi. So I just want to start out saying I appreciate what you're doing, even if we disagree. You guys are in a tough spot right now, pretty much no matter what decision you come to. So that being said, I just wanted to offer a little token of appreciation. And now I'm going to pivot and say why I disagree with you. All right.
Fair enough.
Yeah, so I just want to sort of also point out, too, that I really am disconcerted by the national discourse in this country that there's a line drawn in the sand that if you fall on one side or the other, and in this particular case, if you fall on the side that you're skeptical of mask policies for kids, or that you're not taking COVID seriously, that you are in denial. That doesn't mean that we don't take this disease seriously. It doesn't mean that we take precautions or that we're not aware of all the implications around it. So I just want everyone here who agree or disagree with us to realize that. I pulled some data from the Allegheny County Health Department. Last night, I think Stephanie pretty much said the same thing. So it's by weekly hospitalization per 100,000, as superintendent mentioned before. So this was as of, and this backs up to like, I guess it's June. It's hard to read on the chart they have here. But the number of hospitalization rate per 100,000 since it looks like June-ish to me is 0. When you factor in, that's the age group 5 to 14, which is the kids that we're talking about. When you factor in everyone's age, so all of them, ages 0 to 95, however long people live nowadays, it's hard to tell because there's such a small number, but as of August 22nd, it looks like it's somewhere around like 9 per 100,000. I believe that any of the reporting that goes on that's talking about cases and spread is disingenuous when you're not talking about hospitalization or death. 62% of Pennsylvanians are vaccinated, approximately 10% have survived. That's about roughly 72-ish% have immunity. The thing is, the vaccines are working, the herd immunity is working. This is not a threat. When kids get it, it's by and large, it's almost asymptomatic. They're sniffles. And my argument being, if we all get it, say we all get reinfected, which is very rare, the CDC doesn't even keep stats on that because it's so rare, and you just get the sniffles and it goes away, so what? Anybody here not ever have a cold? Sucks, but you get over it. Not comparing COVID to a cold, I realize that it's different and it's much, much more complicated. So I don't see how this aligns with data, and I do realize there are some. I've read a lot of the studies on masks. They're not rock solid studies, but they are studies, and a lot of the prevention. I don't hear data coming from you guys. I hear CDC says, which is, I realize their importance and their significance in this, but they're an office from some faraway land making recommendations, and we're looking at Allegheny County Health Department data. It's depressing to me, but I fully expect nothing to change. And that kind of bums me out because I hope that what we're saying will fall on reasonable ears and that we can just get our kids to have normal lives, because there are downsides to masks. I mean, we all have worn them. We know that they suck. But apart from that, for the kids, there's learning issues as well. And I hope that you guys will consider that, and I hope it will factor into your decision. Thank you for your time, and thanks again for at least showing up and doing this. All right.
Just one quick question, Becky, because you had cited it also, and the hospitalization rates
Yeah.
that you had looked at, and the data that you're looking at that
It's
shows.
from the county.
Right.
I printed it if you.
No.
Yeah.
I'm just quite, so you got that off the county website, and from what you're saying from the county website, it's saying that it's been zero
It
since.
says
since
zero.
June.
I heard you say earlier that there were some, so maybe it's not. It could be, I mean, it's confusing, like, that's what it says. It says weekly hospitalization rate per 100,000.
Okay.
Statistically, it's zero. That's probably what it's.
Statistically zero, which my kids, if it's statistically zero, then it's zero, right? And if there's one person out of 10 million, like it's like, remember Dumb and Dumber, you're saying there's a chance. You know, that's what I'm hearing, and it sounds, you know. But once again, we take it seriously in our house. We used every measure we could, and you know, I appreciate it. Appreciate you.
Right. Next on the list is Vivian.
Hello, my name is Vivian Chekanowski. I live at 1753 Bar Avenue, and I'm here because I want to give you a student's perspective on just my opinion on masking when I go back to school. I don't want to do it because, first of all, the first thing I remember is feeling anxiety. Every day when I come to school, I'd be thinking, well, okay, do I have my mask on? What if I forget it? And I remember I would feel scared too, and it would make me feel more shy and quiet and small. And I would just look at the ground, and I would hope people wouldn't notice me when I was walking in the halls. And then when I started wearing the mask less in other places, I realized that it was mostly coming from the mask because it made me feel small and quiet, and I had trouble talking to people and making eye contact. And because I was scared that they would mishear me or I would embarrass myself. And it wasn't good for my mental health either. Some nights I would literally just cry to myself because I missed seeing people's faces. And I missed walking around in school without a mask on and the anxiety it came with. And I drifted away from my friends a little bit because I didn't talk to them as much with my mask on. And I really, really didn't like that at all. And every day, really what kept me going, I told myself every day, even though I had to wear a mask, at least I don't have to do this next year. Thank you.
Thank you. Next on the list is Elizabeth.
Hi, my name is Elizabeth Marinella. I don't like wearing masks. I really, really hoped we were going to be done with it at this point. We're not. My priority is keeping my kid in the classroom for classroom learning. We all know that last year was an absolute mess. Teachers did the absolute best they can, but it just didn't work well. I think, unfortunately, masking at this point is probably the best way to keep our kids in school for in-person instruction as much as possible. I do recognize that there are conflicting needs. This isn't an easy decision. It's a hard decision. I feel very badly for anybody in a position of responsibility because there are so many different ways to feel like you're doing the wrong thing right now. And no matter what you decide, somebody is going to feel like their needs aren't being met. But I just want to say at this point, I do support the mask mandate, but given that there are so many different conflicting needs and that we know that this does impact kids who learn differently, autistic children, children with speech delays, I hope that this is something that can be regularly revised and reconsidered in light of data. I would also say that I hope everybody who hopes as much as I do that we can be done with masks soon is going to get themselves and get their kids a vaccine as soon as it's an option. Thanks.
Thank you. Next on the list is Sam.
Dr. Kreider, we talked several times last year. I spoke with the head of the school board itself. My son Felix was so excited to go to school. He started out preschool, he did all that just fine. He finished out kindergarten, hated it. Didn't want to go back. He asked me every day, do I have to go back to school? Because he hates the masks. He wants to see his friends, he wants to see his teachers. He wants to enjoy school again. And that's what I want for him. I mean, it blows me away how asinine all of this is at this point. I understand that there may be some sort of benefit, but it's negligible at best. So at this point, you should leave it up to the parents. If they want their kid to wear a mask, wear a mask. If they don't want your kid to wear a mask, don't wear a mask. You have an option for online learning 5 days a week, great. You have an option for in-school learning 5 days a week, great. I appreciate that as well. It's about time, but it's the bare minimum at this point. Give us the choice. Let us choose for our children.
Next on the list is Brian.
Brian Goodman. I didn't prepare a speech, but I'll kind of shoot from the cup here. But last thing my daughter said to me when I was coming to this meeting today was, "Daddy, please make it so I don't have to wear a mask this year." And I looked at her and I said, "Daddy will go and talk about it, and I'll see what I can do on it." My daughter's the sweetest little girl you probably ever meet in your life. She will sit and look at a teacher and tell her that it's okay she has to wear a mask. But when she comes home, she tells me differently. I love my daughter so much that whatever makes her comfortable is what I want for her. Now, if my daughter is at risk of some kind of severe disease or at risk from getting COVID, where she has a chance of dying from it, or ending up in some kind of ICU unit where I'm looking at her in a bed with tubes, I would not allow my daughter to be going to school without a mask on. I already went through the experience with all 3 of my children. They've all had COVID. I've had COVID. I just recently, got over it. For me, it wasn't bad. For my kids, it wasn't bad. So for us, I don't feel it's something that my child needs to go and wear a mask. Now, with that being said, I've coached 21 seasons of sports in this community. I love kids. I've coached all the kids, that go to this school from ages of now maybe 6 years old up to, probably kids that just graduated this past year. So I care about the kids. So we're not saying that my kid not wearing a mask is more important than your child's safety. I feel that what the data shows is the people that are at risk of this are not healthy people for the most part here. Okay, so when we're talking about numbers and data, we're talking about people that are healthy, that are going to go to school and be healthy. Okay? We're not talking about the person that has a breathing tube or uses oxygen or has some kind of comorbidity that has him at a severe risk of this. All right? Those people, if my child was in a situation like that where he's at risk or she was at risk of their health, and a mask is what's protecting my child's not going to school. I'm not leaving my daughter's in 4th grade, going into 4th grade, so she's 9. She's going to rub elbows with maybe a 5-year-old at some point. I'm not leaving. If my child was at risk, I would not leave my child at risk when the 5-year-old is supposed to be the one saving her. So I feel that masks give a false sense of security here. People get, "Oh, I got my mask on, I'm good." No, you're not. Okay? At the end of the day, we all know that, I think. In the back of our heads, we won't say it, but we all know in the back of our heads that masks aren't doing what we thought they would do. Okay? If you flatten the curve already, we're citing the numbers here of 0. I mean, I didn't see it. I didn't have time. I work 90 to 100 hours a week. I don't have time to look at all the stats. I read a lot when I do, but I don't write down every stat to be able to recite it to you. But you guys can. We all can. I think we all have at this point. We're 17 months into this, 18 months? How far are we in? We all know what's going on. I feel like we all know what to do. Wash our hands. Don't touch our face. Do the things that we should do to protect ourselves. I feel the mask is a false sense of security. I don't want my daughter thinking she's 100% safe because she's got a mask on. Not the case, guys. We all know that. We can still get it. We all masked. We all still got it. Okay? I go to sporting events and watch these little kids play ball. You can see soccer events, you go to football events, you can go to wrestling, clubs. You go to all these programs and you look, there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of children together in a group not wearing masks. Families in stands not wearing masks. I don't want my kid the only place that she's wearing a mask is at school, where she's got to learn. Okay? And we talk about kids with disabilities having a problem, with. It's not just children with disabilities that learn from seeing somebody's emotions, their face, how their mouth, cracked to the side when they said it. There's so much to be learned by looking at a person's face as they speak. I don't want our children, is this going to end? Is this next year too? Is this the following year? The flu never went away. We still didn't fix that. We take shots for it every year. Vaccines. I get one every year because I deal with kids. It's not going to end. I'm not 100% sure because I'm no scientist, but I'm hearing that this can affect animals. So it has animal reservoirs. We cannot get rid of this. This will be here for as long as every person in this room is alive. It'll always be here. We're never going to get rid of it. So does that mean every year when it starts to bump back up again, we're going to mask up? I do not want my kids wearing a mask going forward. We talk about the new norms. This is not the new norm. Looking at you guys right now, I can't even tell what you think right now of what I'm speaking because you all I see is eyes. I don't want that, okay? If it's going to save everybody's life, let's all wear them. But it's not. People are dying still from this thing, and the masks aren't protecting and saving like we thought. So let's not give this false sense of security to everybody, like, hey, you got your mask on, you're good. Come to school, everything's fine, okay? I don't want my kids to be at home. I want them to be at school. And if the masks would help that, I'm not for it, but I want my kids to be in school at the end of the day. That's what I want. I work too much to teach my kids. So with that being said, I appreciate you guys standing here listening to me, coming and doing what you do, but I feel like we need to make a different decision here. 77% of the kids in elementary school that surveyed being okay with it. I feel that we have spoke, and the board that was elected by us, I feel should speak for us and not for the minority. The minority is not supposed to control the majority. The majority is supposed to control the minority, and that's why we vote. United States of America, and that's how we do things here. So I feel that we've spoke. We spoke, we voted, we surveyed, we told you what we wanted, and I feel that we're going against what the citizens in this community want. Thank you for your time.
Next on the list is Aaron. Aaron with an assist. Hi, Aaron.
My name is Becky Hefner from Pennsylvania, and am in. Wait, do you go by what grade BJ class or what grade?
Sure, either one's fine. Thank you.
5th/6/7. Okay. I am not claiming to represent all kids of my grade or school, and these are my opinions only, of which I have done little to no research on. Just want to get that out of the way. So, as a kid, I have observed no harm being done from my mask. And the mask is not just protecting from COVID, but I have not gotten pretty much any sickness all the time. You can throw that off as me having a good immune system or something, but I've gotten a lot of sicknesses before. I have 2 friends with weakened immune systems, and I want to wear masks to protect them. And masks take a little time to get used to, but mainly it's not. But mainly after a bit, people don't mind. One of the big points was blocking people's mouths so you couldn't see their expressions. This is probably just for me, but I find that body language and tone of voice is good enough for me. And the last thing is that in answer to the anti-mask faction, I'd say most of the things brought up, I would answer with either maybe a little more research would be appreciated, or that correlation does not imply causation. Like, people are wearing masks and people are getting sick. That does not mean masks are not helping us protect from getting sick. That is all I have.
Thank you. I'd like to applaud both students that came up and spoke. That's great to have our kids participate, so thank you. Thank you very much. Next on our list is Becky Hefner.
Yes, I do claim him. Very proudly.
As you should.
And I will let you guys know that I asked if he wanted to go over with me what he was going to say, and he's like, no, I'm good. So anyway, my name is Becky Hefner. I live in Crafton. I have had 3 students go through the district. One graduated in 2020. One is a senior this year, and then my son Aaron, who is in 6th/7th grade this coming year, because he takes math in 7th grade. Okay. I just wanted to say again how much I appreciate that someone else, a couple people said how much they appreciate you guys just listening respectfully and everybody here being pretty respectful. We know that's not always the case, and I'm glad to see that. These sort of things always make me nervous because I'm very protective of our community. I will go mama bear on anybody who wants to trash Carlinton or Crafton or so that's how I feel. I don't like to see a lot of disparaging going on between us, even though we disagree on things. I think it's been really respectful. I would like to address the nuance that is involved with kids with special needs. I absolutely agree. There is something to consider there. It has to be considered if we're to offer a free and fair education to all, which is the mandate that our public schools are under. We can't just say to those kids, sorry, you have to stay home if you can't follow the mask mandate. We also can't say to them, sorry, you have to stay home. No one is masking to protect you. We can't do either of those things in good conscience. So there is a nuance. I tend to choose the way of kindness. Masking is a way of encouraging selfless acts of kindness. And parents, we do have a choice. We have a choice of how we teach our children to deal with this difficult thing. Just like we have seen good examples and bad examples of how to deal with COVID all along. We have had struggle after struggle because this is brand new. None of us have ever been through anything like this before. Even what we've been through over the last 18 months has changed because the ICU, pediatric ICU nurses in the South are freaking out. And they are saying, we don't know what to do when 19-year-olds come in and need to be intubated. And we have to have that conversation with those parents. When your 19-year-old has to be intubated, or the rise of the MSIC, I think it's called, the respiratory illness, that's happening in real life right now. And nurses are trying to figure it out and deal with it. One of the heads of the American Academy of Pediatrics, not influenced by media or not influenced by politics, just a head pediatrician who cares about children's health and looks at the data and looks at what's happening in real time. She recommends masks for children because it can offer a layer of protection. So we have a choice, parents and guardians and everyone around them, teachers, and by the way, our teachers do an amazing job at this, of framing this for our kids, that you know what? I understand this isn't comfortable. I understand this just doesn't feel great for you. I understand that you're struggling. Let me help you with it. I know kids, like the young lady who spoke, who really struggled socially because of the masks. My son's statement regarding that was, well, I adapted and amped up my body language and amped up how I use my tone of voice. And actually, he really grew in that aspect in the last year. He had to. He had to adapt. We talked through that together as a family. It is a way of encouraging them to have kindness and compassion we know that they're not going to just choose that en masse. Everybody's not going to just choose that of their own volition. But we can teach it to them. Be the kind kid, right? Hashtag. All right. I think it is a good, important thing to emphasize, along with like considering our kids with special needs, that if there's a student that cannot wear a mask because they have a diagnosis such as sensory processing disorder or something related to a neurodivergent issue, that has to be taken into account. I do advocate for that. There has to be an accounting for that. There has to be working one-on-one for the nuanced, non-black and white issues. A lot of things are gray. So I hope to see that the administration, the school board, our teachers will all take that very seriously and help protect kids if they have that kind of situation. I think a big priority, as Dr. Kreider mentioned, is having an uninterrupted school year or reduced chance of quarantine or shutdown. I am very much for that. I'm a working mom. I work from home, but it still completely interrupts my day if my kids want to come listen to audio Harry Potter while I work. And I'm in an easy situation. Most other parents don't get to work from home. So they have to find childcare. We know how difficult that is now. Just a couple of little quick points. I don't want to take up too much more time, but I do want to point out that there are cases of people getting COVID from their children. And that's something that doesn't seem to be widely recognized, is that it's not just about, are the children going to get sick? We don't have to worry about them dying. I would like them to have good, healthy, strong lives and keep their grandmothers and grandfathers and aunts with diabetes and, sorry, that's very personal. If kids are going to be exposed to COVID, they have a very strong chance of being asymptomatic, which is awesome, and then transmitting it to other people who are vulnerable in their lives. I have a very, very close dear friend who cannot get a vaccine right now. She has a very good reason for it. She cannot get a vaccine. I don't want her kids coming home from school and giving her COVID. It probably would kill her. I have some healthy friends who are in their 30s and 40s, or much healthier than I am, and they had a mild case. They didn't just get over it. They have strange, long-haul symptoms now. It seemed like just a cold. Now, one of them has to go to the hospital for breathing treatments like all the time. And that was never the case with them. They were healthy. So there are long-haul issues. There are gray areas here, and I would prefer that we just do the best we can to protect everyone and to take care of each other as best as we can. So in closing, I just want to say, most of all, I'm really proud of my school district. I'm so proud because, first of all, the way you guys handled the 2020 graduates was epic. It was so good. Driving personally to my house to deliver my daughter's diploma with like all the pomp and circumstance was amazing. We didn't think we would get something like that. So thank you. Working hard for safety and normalcy over this last year, even though it was almost impossible, you did a great job. A lot better than some school districts who have a lot more resources. So thank you. I really appreciate it. And thanks for hearing me out tonight.
Okay. Next on the list is Mandy.
Hello. I actually had a huge speech prepared tonight. I got back from Miami at 3 o'clock this afternoon. I actually obtained legal counsel. I am pro-parent choice. I'm not pro-for mask. My daughter disagreed with what the last woman said, that it's an act of kindness because after 6 months of doctor visits and endless testing, The only time she's seen a doctor in 9 years was since being required to wear masks in school, and that's the only thing they attributed to. So I can sit here and plead, I can plead my wish. My dad died at 40 from the flu, and I don't expect everybody around me to wear a mask. You know, I know 2 kids that died from the flu. We never masked our kids before. And like I said, I could go all day, and I had a huge speech prepared. And I even told the other members here, I said, you know what? My legal counsel told me not to even come, because he said, you're not going to keep your mouth shut. I said, I'll keep my mouth shut, but I just want to let you know. And it's not that I want to be in a legal battle with the school board. It's just that I have to fight for my daughter. My daughter's education has suffered. Her health has suffered. Give options is all I'm saying. And please leave the health choices to the parents and their pediatricians. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, all options are ultimatums.
Right.
Next on the list is Roger.
He stepped out to get my son from football, so
Okay.
that's my husband.
We'll
Thank
circle
you.
back.
Thank
in a
you.
little bit. Okay. Next is Ginger.
Thank you. Sorry.
Sorry.
Hi there. I'm Ginger Heights. I live on Mont Avenue in Crofton. I wasn't originally going to speak tonight, but I felt like something needed to be said, and lots of other people have stated their opinions, so I will tell you what I know. Thank you, first of all, for putting yourself in a position to have to make these decisions for our children. I appreciate you. I appreciate everything you've done for the last year and a half to keep as many kids in our district safe as you could. So I come to you as a parent of children with autoimmune diseases in your district. Last year, it was right. I kept my kid home as long as I could. I kept all of my children home. I kept them masked. My son wore a mask playing soccer, hockey, everything, the entire season until he was vaccinated. My 11-year-old daughter continued to mask. This summer, everything went down. The rates were looking great. We unmasked. We're all vaccinated except for my daughter. She continued to wear her mask in public because she could not get a vaccine, not only to protect herself, but to protect our elderly relatives that could not get a vaccine. Something that I want to bring to your attention is we're talking about, people recover. The recovery rates are amazing, but it doesn't mean that they're healthy, that there's no long-term issues from COVID. The autoimmune rate in this country has gone from 2010 in children from 10.4% to 20.8% in 2018. What does that have to do with COVID? Guess what? Your kids can get an autoimmune disease from the flu, from COVID, from a bad case of bronchitis. You can develop an autoimmune disease at any point in your lifetime. And if you do not deal with one, or you don't have a child that has one, count your blessings. Because there is nothing but medication upon medication upon medication that is stacked, and it's stacked against your children. They will be hospitalized for no reason, simply because their body is reacting to those medications. So some of those include lupus, diabetes, Crohn's, juvenile arthritis, just for mild COVID. MIS-C is a real issue. And in the boards that I am a part of online, there are children dying from this disease all the time from their response, from mild cases of COVID, not even severe. So if you want to know why I support masks, I am one of the ones that on the survey this summer said, do whatever. If this is where we're at, I trust you to make the correct decision. So no, I didn't say, yes, I want masks, because we were in a good place. Because this is how diseases work. There are surges. And again, our children will respond how we respond. And there is a lot more at stake for their lives than just a little sickness. There are people that are truly, truly sick. And your children could also have a long-term health issue from having COVID, no matter how mild their case is. And I think that that needs to be brought to the forefront. I'm with these kids as well as most of you. We're all together. I'm with these kids all the time. They don't care about wearing masks. They just want to participate. They want to be in school. The bulk of these kids do not care that they have to wear masks. And yes, I'm aware we have multiple friends who have children who are autistic, who have different sensory issues. I get it. It's not easy, but it's never easy for those kids. whether they're wearing a mask or not, it is always a hurdle. And as a parent with children who are medically immunocompromised, the easiest thing we can do is try to layer protection to keep these children safe. And if that's what it takes, if just adding another layer, we'll all get through this, but we just have to remember to be kind to each other. And we all may disagree, but in the long term, we have to do what's right, even just to protect the kids as much as we can. And I'm sorry if you don't think masks are it, but it's not like this is for the whole year. You are going to continually watch and see how the surges go, and you're going to change it as needed based, just like we did for the whole last year. So right now we're in a surge, and this is what's needed to protect our kids. Then I think you're doing the right thing, and I thank you for listening to the healthcare providers and the doctors and everyone else who is making very difficult decisions right now. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Next on the list is Dana.
Hi, I'm Dana Bannon. I live at 61 Dinsmore. I just have some notes, but I'm not going to read them off. But I just want to say thank you. I think you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't, and that's a really crappy position to be in. I attended multiple school board meetings last year, virtually, a few in person. And I will say, I hope people continue to come, because this is where the decision making happens. It doesn't happen on Facebook, it doesn't happen on the internet, and it doesn't happen in your group of friends. It happens here. So I'm glad people showed. Even if I don't agree with you, I'm just glad you showed up. I've been the only one at meetings at times. Like, I think it's really great. It sucks that it's under this situation, but I'm glad there's parental involvement. That being said, I'm not a scientist. I'm not a doctor. I'm a hairstylist and a business owner and a mother. I talk to people all day for a living, and it's changing out there. I can see it. I can predict it. We had different ebbs and flows last year as a business owner in a service industry. But I'm not here to convince anybody that COVID is real. I'm not here to convince you that you need a vaccine or you don't need a vaccine, because I don't think that's why we're here. That's a losing battle. There's no way I'm going to convince anyone that they need a mask that is already set in their ways, just like they're not going to convince me that I don't need a mask. I continue to mask at my job. I require it for everyone that walks in my job. I require it. We're all vaccinated, okay? But it's just what I feel safe with, and people really do appreciate it. When it comes to the kids, I think data can work for you, and I think it can work against you. I think if you're looking for data to prove your point, it's there. I think if you're looking for data to prove someone else's point is wrong, it is there, because this is not something that we know every day. In July, you guys came out with your policy, just like you did last summer, and I appreciated that. It gave me time to plan and prepare. There are districts that still are not discussing what their plans are. I have clients of mine that are freaking out. You know, Pittsburgh Public Schools just changed their start date last week. We have a good school board, whether they agree with me or not on the masks. You guys, I appreciate in July you attempting to have some sort of policy. It allows you to make changes, hire sitters, go to different schools that aren't wearing masks. Whatever your choice is, it gives you time to do that, and that is appreciated. When it comes to the science, you know, I think it's always changing. I think from July to, what is it, August 16th, 17th, look how much has changed. In 2 weeks, it's going to change again when the kids start school. I mean, it's just going to change. I'm scared about remote school. So we have a lot of discussions regarding masks, 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 school, school, school. I have a kindergartner this year. I have a third grader who had a horrific year last year because school sucked. Let's just be honest, it sucked. And I have a 8th grader. So I feel like I have 3 pretty good separate perspectives. I don't want to do online kindergarten. I don't want to do online kindergarten. I hated doing online school, so much so that I actually had to hire help because I couldn't do it. If you told me my kid had to wear a chicken suit to go to school 5 days a week, I'd put him in a chicken suit. It's not about whether or not I believe in it. It's not, if it gets my kids 5 days a week in school, I will take it. And that's just where I stand on it. And I can't understand the otherwise, because I think, what are we going to do? Wait until it gets so bad that our kids have to be home? Because that's awful too. I don't want to wait until it's too late. I don't want to make reactionary decisions, game day decisions the week up, and I really just don't want my kids home. My daughter signed up to speak after me, but we talk about developmental delays. There were delays from her own school too. There was a lot of delays. She has ADHD. Online school was really bad for her. Even if the teachers were great and did their best, it was still really bad for her. In-person school is the best option for her. So again, whatever it takes to get there at 5 days is all I'm asking for. Also last year, when the district came out and said that we were going to be home for 8 weeks and then we were going to be going back in October, I didn't want my kids to go back in October. So you know what my choice was for my child? I kept her home. Because that's where the choice lies. The choice is not whether or not the school district lets you do certain things. They require things of us all the time. The amount of paperwork to do a sport, the amount of physicals, immunizations, there's always requirements. If you don't want to do the requirements, you have other options. You're not required to go to the school. That's where your choice lies, in my opinion. We chose to keep our kids home until after the holidays because I predicted that there would be a surge in my mind, just seeing how my salon business was. We kept them home until February. That was just the choice we made. It wasn't right or wrong. That's what my family was comfortable with. Does that mean that everyone's family is comfortable with it? No. Does that mean that everybody's financial position allowed them to do that? No. But I also think there's just as many reasons that you guys are saying to keep kids, developmental delays and things like that. There's the same answer for keeping kids home, and it will be inevitable if it's tracking the way that it's tracking. And I would just like to stay away from that. I would also like to say, again, I just appreciate everybody coming. And whether you agree or disagree, I think it's been a good meeting. I've watched a few online of other districts that have not been so great. And I think in the end, we have to trust. This is an emotional thing for us as parents. That's why we have a school board. They're not here to make an emotional decision. They're here to make a decision that's best for the district. And let's just hope in one way or another it's the best one. Because I don't think we know. Whatever decision you make today, I don't think we know if it's the right one. So thank you.
Next on the list is Ruby.
I'm Ruby Bannon. I live in 61 Benjamin Avenue with my mom. And last year was insane. And my grades were worse than they ever have been. And I could not pay attention online whatsoever. And I really do not want to go back to going online. And I hate wearing masks too. I can't see my friends' faces, and it really sucks, and I hate them. But if I have to wear a mask to be safe so I can stay in school, I'd rather wear a mask so we can stay in and not end up having to go back online because people do not want to wear masks in school. And in fact, we are still to consider lifting the mandate later on, which is what I think is more responsible to do, and to start off this year stronger with everyone with their masks so everyone is more protected so we can see how the school year goes.
Thank you. There was one name written here next that's crossed out.
Oh, it's me. I didn't know if I'd speak or not.
Lucy, would you like to speak?
I thought I was just signing in. I'm used to the PCA and the old I don't come to many of these. I used to send my husband. I'm Lucy Valchef. I live at 78 Belvedere. So I would just say I'm for masks, first of all. And I have 3 children. I have twin 12-year-olds. I have a 10-year-old, so 7th graders and a 5th grader. And I'm just going to say, and I get it, we're all different, but my kids are totally fine wearing masks. They don't like them, they can't stand them. But if it gets them in school, they want the mask. I kept my kids home until the end of March, and that was a family decision based on older adults not being able to be, vaccinated, as well as we were involved in sports where they wore masks, but we wanted to lessen our exposure at places. So we did as long as we could at home, and we also thought it's spring, windows are open, it's a little more circulation. So we sent them back and they did fine. They were fine with it. But I'm a different situation as well because my kids thrived. The boys kind of had their hits and misses with the teacher communication. But I think that's just age as well. We're learning new things in this middle school age group. But my daughter, she has an IEP and was below grade level and is now at grade level. So we're a different situation. But I'm also a teacher. At home, I'm at home now. I've been home for 12 years, but I'm a teacher. And so I was able to sit there with her and teach her, and I'm in a totally different situation here. But everybody else slowed down, and she caught up. And so I think it's really, there's other situations to consider. I also will say I'm a substitute teacher in Carlinton, and at the end of the school year, I was subbing a few days, not much, but these kids are fine. They really are. I get that they're coming home and saying they don't like the mask. Mine do it too. But in the classroom, they're fine wearing them. When they don't want them on, all of them, and I was kindergarten up, I try to avoid middle school, I'll be honest. But I was kindergarten up, the 4th, 5th grade. My boys don't want me around them anymore, so I didn't do that grade much. But when they didn't want their mask on, they'd say, hey, can I put my shield on? And I'd say, sure. And they put their shield in, they took their mask off, they took a break. It was not, I didn't watch the clock. If we started to move, I'd say, oh, don't forget your mask, put that back on, and they did it. These kids do it. So it's about just keeping them safe, and I agree, it's about keeping them in school. My biggest fear is that we start school and we have no virtual in place and we're having numbers high and we have to end school with no other plan. What are we going to do? We're going to run into going to school until the end of June, if not longer, and then we're coming up with who knows what complication with teachers as far as if we shut down for an amount of time and then having to stay in longer. If it gets us in school and keeps us in school, I'm all for it, and so are my children. And also thank you. Thank you guys for what you're doing. I know it's not easy, and you're hearing from a lot of us, so I appreciate it.
Thanks, Lucy. That was the last person I had signed up to speak. Are there? I
came in late. Can I have a few minutes?
Sure.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. We've also got one or two people that we missed for various reasons. We'll circle back. Go ahead.
Thanks. Tina Engelke, 131 Edgecliff Road and Roslyn Farms. Tonight I'm going to, I heard some rumor in the neighborhood that masks were going back on. So I was caught off guard. I didn't have time to do the preparation that I would have liked to have done and had everything laid out. So I'm going to be reading from a couple sources and I'll be going back and forth, but please bear with me. I do want to say I appreciate all of you. I understand the difficult decision this is. I served for 5 years on a private Christian school board in Mount Lebanon. I understand your responsibility, and you are faced with difficult decisions. You have a fiduciary responsibility to the school, but you also have a responsibility to the parents and the teachers to hear them out as well. And so I can relate. So I just want to lay that out, and I appreciate everything. So at the beginning of this pandemic, we were told that, what's the harm? Just put a mask on, what's the harm? Okay? We were told that by CDC that the ramifications for not putting on a mask was, or putting on the mask was stopping the spread. So I am by nature a planner. I think years ahead. And that led me to, what are the ramifications of wearing masks? What are we doing to our children and ourselves by wearing these masks? So that led me down the rabbit hole of doing the research of what are the ramifications for wearing masks, not wearing masks. So, first study that I found was a group of parents. Dr. Kreider, we have talked about this, and some of you have read this, but I want to share this research with the parents because they may not be aware of this. But there was a group of parents in Jacksonville, Florida, that were curious about what was growing on the mask of their children. They sent their mask away. These are freshly laundered masks that were worn for 5 to 8 hours. They sent them away to one of the university's labs in Jacksonville. The results from that were 11 alarming, dangerous pathogens and bacteria. I want to read them to you. Pneumonia, tuberculosis, meningitis and sepsis, encephalitis, I'll just say that, pneumonia, bloodstream infections, meningitis, UTIs that are resistant to antibiotics, E. coli, food poisoning, Borrelia, which causes Lyme disease, diphtheria, Legionnaire's disease, Staphylococcus, which are severe infections with high morbidity rates, and another type of Staphylococcus, which was a form of meningitis, and sepsis. Now, they also sent down a control, which was a freshly laundered mask and a t-shirt, and those came back with nothing on them. So you can see the dangers that are growing on our children's masks. A study out of the University of Louisville said prolonged mask use promotes facial alkalization and inadvertently encourages dehydration, which in turn can enhance barrier breakdown and bacterial infection risk. Clinicians have reported masks to increase headaches and sweating and decrease cognitive precision. By obscuring nonverbal communication, masks interfere with social learning in children. Mask-induced harmful changes are relatively minor at first glance. So, no big deal. Put a mask on for a couple hours, no big deal. But repeated exposure over longer periods of time is relative. Long-term disease-relevant consequences of masks are to be expected. I'll read that again. Long-term disease-relevant consequences of masks are to be expected. This is a quote from scientists. Masks, when they're worn by the general public, are viewed by scientists as a risk of infection because the standardized hygiene rules that are used in hospitals could not be observed by the general public. Risk of infection. I'll also state that if you go to CDC website, I did a search because if there is a danger out there, certainly CDC should be aware of this. So if you do a search, adverse effects for wearing masks, dangers in wearing masks, this is what CDC's search comes back with. We wear masks to help slow the spread. Personal and social activities, types of masks, proper procedures for putting on masks. So the CDC does not even inform us of the adverse effects for wearing masks or the health ramifications for wearing masks. Another resource states that there have been hundreds of mass studies related to influenza transmission done over several decades. It is a well-established fact that masks do not stop viruses. Part of that evidence shows that cloth face masks actually increase influenza-linked illnesses. Bacteria are 50 times larger than virus particles. As such, this is important, virus particles can enter through the mask pores, but bacteria, because it's larger, remains trapped inside the mask. Trapped inside the mask, resulting in the mask wearer continually exposed to the bacteria. I read 11 harmful, dangerous pathogens and bacteria trapped inside the mask. Our kids are breathing that 6 to 8 hours a day. They are not able to expel this bacteria because it's larger than the openings in the mask to be released. Most of you have probably read that the Spanish flu, this is what happened with the Spanish flu. The majority of deaths we found were from bacterial pneumonia, not from the actual virus or the flu, from bacterial pneumonia from wearing masks. That's a fact that is out there. I did not have time to do the research on this because it's very lengthy, but according to a website called Rational Ground, they have an article called "Masking Children is Impractical and Not Backed by Research or Real-World Data." They have 15 items. These items are all backed. Every single one of those items are backed by 2 or 3 studies. I will forward the website to you, but I went and I read the first study. It's a gajillion pages long. I just didn't have time to go through. But the first study was from the Lancet report. So it's a very reliable resource that many doctors use and peer-reviewed studies on there. I'll just read through the 15 items. Children are at very low risk from COVID-19. Children spread COVID-19 much less than adults. Asymptomatic children rarely spread COVID-19. Fourth one, teachers do not face an increased risk from children. Again, every single one of these has a study or 2 or 3 that back up those claims. Schools have not driven the spread of COVID-19. The effectiveness of masks is not conclusive. Masking children correctly is unrealistic. Improper masking is common and sanitary and unsanitary. One of I'll find it later. Many places do not require masks on children. Schools without masks have not fared worse. Masks can hinder speech development in children. And that right there should startle all of us, because we're teaching children speech. Masks can hinder speech development in children. Deaf and disabled children struggle to learn with masks. Masking can often cause headaches and fatigue. Some masks contain toxic chemicals. Masking can cause a wide variety of other health issues. I recently learned about a code, U.S. code. It's Title 21, U.S. Code 36 BBB-3 of the Federal Food, Drug, and Cosmetics Act. Just read some of that. All COVID-19 masks, whether surgical, N95, or other respirators, are authorized, not approved or licensed by the federal government. They're authorized, but the masks are homemade masks. They are not approved by the federal government. They are emergency use authorization only. And according to that code, there are things that we're not following. There are things that we're not following. There are items there that we're not following. I care about all of you. There is a liability at stake here. There is a liability at stake here with not following those codes. And I can offer you that code later, but I would encourage you to do your research there, because liability for forced participation in a medical experiment, which is what this code is saying, by emergency use, is a medical experiment, because these masks were not approved by the FDA. And if they cause possible injury their liabilities may be incalculable, what this report says. So I would encourage you to do some research on that. So that's my research. I understand it's difficult. I understand the decision is difficult, but I support with a lot of the parents here, leave the decision up to the parents. And we don't know what the ramifications are 5 years from now. Who's responsible for that? If it's a mandate, if you make it a recommendation, you release yourself of that liability. And CDC says it's a recommendation, it's not a mandate. So it's not a law. Keep it as a recommendation. Leave the options up to the parent. Release yourself of the liability of any injuries like pneumonia, like E. coli, like whatever else I had listed there. And that removes the liability out of your hands. So thank you for your time.
Circling back, we got Roger that wanted to speak.
It's okay, but to pick up his son. Okay. Thank you.
And then Reese.
Hello, I'm Reese. I live on Walnut Street in Crawford. I'm not going to talk about the masks. Why? Because you guys already decided. Nothing goes in the agenda that isn't going to get approved or passed or whatever. And it's pretty much always unanimous too. And why is this? Why is everything always decided before the meeting? Why isn't there ever any debate, during one of these things before you pass something? Is every decision you guys make truly unanimous? At all the meetings I've been to, I can really only remember like maybe 1 or 2 times you guys actually had a vote that wasn't unanimous. And we would like to see a debate amongst you guys. We want to know what you guys think individually. I really don't know what any of you guys actually think when it comes to actually governing the school board itself. And you know what? This is one of the reasons why people have trouble trusting the school board. It's because no one knows what you guys stand for. You guys never debate anything. You guys just sit up here and just pass things unanimously. And I'm sure some things would pass unanimously, but everything, you guys never disagreed on anything. You're always in 100% agreement. And even so, even if you guys reach 100% agreement, that's not a bad thing. But we want to see you guys get there. We want to see the push and pull, the compromises you guys make. We want to actually know what you guys think. We don't really know what you guys think. I'm sure some people know what a few you think from speaking to y'all personally. But from us that come here to the meetings, we should be able to decipher what you guys believe in and what you guys stand for when it comes to actually governing the school board, governing the school district of our community. Furthermore, that's pretty much why the meetings are dead, is because people come here, and if you guys already have your minds made up before the actual meeting, when we come to comment on it, how can we change your mind? Because we never know anything's actually happening until you put it on the agenda, but you don't put anything on the agenda unless you know it's going to pass. So your minds are already made up. We never have any option to actually, we come here and we put in input, but are you guys really listening? When you guys just spent, I'm sure you guys spent a very long time over the past 2 weeks debating amongst yourselves, talking about it. So I'm sure you guys have been talking about this for a while, but none of us really knew to come in and try to talk to you guys until you put out this agenda to then discuss it. But it's on the agenda, so you guys already have your mind made up. So how much good is it doing? Now, that's not to poo-poo anyone here, because I'm glad you all came. I really am. I've been to a lot of these meetings. No one ever shows up. I'm glad you're here. I want people to come. I want people to talk to you guys. But, if your mind's always made up, why should we come if your mind's already made up and we're never going to convince you otherwise? So that's just some food for thought for everyone. Thank you.
That's the extent of those that have signed up to speak. Thank you, everybody, for sharing your thoughts. The vote on that topic will occur later in the meeting in the agenda, but we really do appreciate everybody's feedback for and against, and all the subtleties that you shared with us. We thank you for your input, and I'll echo a couple of comments. Very, very appreciative of the tone that everybody took with each other. We have disagreeing opinions on some of these topics, but you all did it respectfully, and I'm grateful to be associated with the district with fine people like you that are able to have this conversation. So thank you very much for doing that. Board, any other comments before we move on? Dr. Kreider, any other?
No, sir.
Move on then. Under section 2 of our agenda, we have minutes from previous meetings. I'll entertain a motion to approve, number 1, the voting meeting minutes of August 10th, 2021, and number 2, the voting meeting of July 13th, 2021. Do I have a motion for this?
I so move.
Thank you. Moved and seconded. Any discussion?
Jim, I'm going to abstain first because I was not here last week.
Understood. All right, thank you. Any other comments or abstentions?
I wasn't here either, so.
For last week. Okay. With those notations, any other comments? If not, we'll vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. And abstentions noted for last week's meeting. All right, motion carries. Thank you. Under section 3, reports. Right here. Executive session. I'll report that we had an executive session prior to this meeting where we discussed student matters, real estate and contracts, personnel, and student safety matters. And now back to Dr. Kreider. Any other follow-up comments on your superintendent report? No. Board, if there's any urgent committee reports, we can do them tonight, but in the spirit of time, we can skip those until next meeting. Unless someone's got something urgent they'd like to report? No? Okay. Let's move on then. Under section 4, under section 4, there are a number of items. Items 1 through 9. I'll entertain a motion to approve the following. Number 1, 2021-2022 conference and field trips as submitted. Number 2, the memorandum of understanding between the district and the Carnegie Police Department for the 21-22 school year. Number 3, MOU with memorandum of understanding between the district and the Crafton Police Department for the 21-22 school year. Number 4, the MOU with Robinson Township Police Department for the 21-22 school year. Number 5, the memorandum of understanding between the district and the Scott Township Police Department for the 21-22 school year. Number 6, the license agreement between the district and the Borough of Roslyn Farms for use of the Borough Athletic Field for the 21-22 school year. Number 7, the Carlington School District Health and Safety Plan with revisions as submitted. Number 8, to approve and permit the superintendent to hire or temporarily assign any necessary employees subject to ratification at the next public meeting of September 14th, 2021. And number 9, to approve the submission to the Carlton School District emergency instructional time for the 21-22 school year as it relates to section 520.1 of the school code and as amended component to the district's health and safety plan. So I have a motion for those 9 items.
Jim, could we vote on 4.7 separately?
We certainly can. So why don't we vote on items 1 through 9 except for 7. So 1 through 6 and 8 and 9 first. Can we do that?
Sure.
1 through 6 and 8 and 9. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay? Thank you very much.
So moved.
So you have a motion to approve items 1 through 6 and 8 and 9.
So moved.
Thank you. Move to second. Thank you, Board Secretary. Keeping me honest. Now, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Now on the health and safety plan. If you have comments or questions, you can do it after we have a motion to vote. Can I entertain a motion to approve item number 7, the health and safety plan?
So moved.
Second. Moved and seconded. Any discussion? None?
Yes, I guess.
Okay.
I was moved by people who are against the mask. I don't know if you noticed me. I've been healthy. I seldom get headaches. 15 minutes of wearing the mask and I got a headache. If I were a kid here, I would suffer every day with a headache or be put in the auditorium. Thanks for fighting for the other side. I know these people are wonderful people. They're doing the best for our kids. to vote for masks because they believe in it, but they're not suffering from the mask that I am.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other board comments or questions? I'll quickly share that I appreciate everybody's comments. There were some people questioning the studies. We had reviewed studies. There have been board members that work in the healthcare industry and have provided studies for us that we can review. The board is made up of a variety of people of different backgrounds and different experiences. We each bring something different. Dr. Hanshar has different experiences I do, so that collective input has allowed us to reach decisions on this topic and many others. We don't always see eye to eye on every topic, so and this is a challenging one. So,
Excuse me, as you know, I have to.
do you want to participate in the vote and then the vote?
Excuse me?
You want to vote? We're going to vote on this.
Oh,
Yeah.
I thought we did. Okay.
So, for item number 7, health and safety plan, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay.
Nay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Motion carries. George, thank you for your comments.
Hey, I have a right.
Under-
I have a right, sir. No, I have to pick up my wife. I'm not going to talk. Someone.
So under section 5, finance, I will entertain a motion for the following 9 items. Item number 1 is the supplemental athletic list. No, it's not. Item number 1, the treasurer's report for August of 2021, which reflects the July 21 treasurer's report, the investment report, the board summary report, the July 2021 junior senior high school activities report, and the July 2021 athletic report. Item number 2, to approve the bills for the month of July 2021 in the amount of $499,317.12. Number 3, to approve the 2021-2022 IDEA Section 619 use of funds agreement as submitted. Number 4, to approve the transition memorandum of understanding between the district and the Allegheny Intermediate Unit for school years 2020, 2021, and 21-22 as submitted. Number 5, to approve the services agreement between the district and the Children's Institute for the term of July 1, 2021 to June 30th, 2022 as submitted. Number 6, to approve resolution number 483-21 to join with other local government units as a settler of the Pennsylvania Local Government Investment Trust, PLGIT, for the purpose of purchasing shares in the trust as submitted. Number 7, to approve the service agreement between the district and Precision HR, a 1-year agreement for the provision of custodial staffing services as submitted. Number 8, to approve the memorandum of understanding between the district and Adagio Health to identify the roles and responsibilities of each party as they relate to the Power Up, Eat Right Nutrition Education Program for the period of October 1st, 2021 through September 30th, 2023. Number 9, to approve the agreement between the district and Awaken Pittsburgh for use at Carnegie Elementary School for a period of 1 year beginning July 1st, 2021 through June 30th, 2022 as submitted. Do I have a motion for those 9 items under section 5?
So moved. Second.
Moved and seconded. Thank you. Any discussion? If not, we'll vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Under section 6, personnel, we have several items. I'll entertain a motion to approve items 1 through 9 as well, 9 items. Number 1, to approve the additions to the 2021-2022 athletic supplemental list with new coaches. The stipends for the supplemental position holders are contingent upon completion of the full school year and will be prorated in the event of a short or canceled season due to unforeseen circumstances. Number 2, to approve Jean Byerly for the position of nurse's assistant for the 21-22 school year for the terms of the Secretary of Cafeteria Aides Collective Bargaining Unit Agreement and effective August 24th, 2021. Number 3, to approve the elimination of the autistic support aide at Crafton Elementary School due to the transitioning of students. Number 4, accept the resignation of Lindsay Lawrence from the position of cafeteria worker, effective immediately. Number 5, to approve and award a temporary employee contract to Lenora Emanuelson as a music choral teacher at the junior senior high school, effective August 23rd, 2021, and consistent with the terms of the Carleton Federation of Teachers collective bargaining unit agreement. Number 6, to approve the memorandum of understanding between the district and the Carleton Federation of Teachers as submitted. Number 7, to approve and increase the substitute teacher rate to $135 per day. Number 8, to approve Marilena Laney for the position of general cafeteria worker at the junior senior high school, effective August 23rd, 2021, per the terms of the SCA collective bargaining unit agreement. Number 9, to accept the letter of resignation of lunchroom playground aide Andrea Savacco, effective immediately. Do I have a motion for those 9 items? Moved and seconded. Thank you very much. Any discussion? If not, we'll vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Under Section 7, Policy Services, we have 1 item. I'll entertain a motion to approve the second reading of the revisions and updates to policies 146.1, 150, 203, 209, 220, 247, 249, and 252 as submitted. Do I have a motion for that item?
So moved. Second.
Moved and seconded. Thank you. Any discussion? If not, we'll vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Section 8, old business. Any director of any old business they'd like to bring up? Section 9, new business. Any director of any new business they'd like to share? None. Moving on to open forum. Any follow-up open forum questions from the audience? Ms. Smith.
I wanted to talk about the busing. You guys had asked last week, did we know whether or not we were going to have enough bus drivers? We had our meeting on Monday. I couldn't tell you if we're going to have enough bus drivers because you guys never sent us all the school runs. We're missing part of the runs. The runs that you did send down to us are the exact same runs that you sent down last year that are all messed up, that they've not been fixed, they've not been done. I asked them if they had been trained on the program. They said they had some training, but they haven't finished the training yet. I don't, as a parent, my son no longer goes to this school. As a citizen, my taxes pay for everything. We paid for that outrageous program that you guys bought, that you still aren't using correctly, that isn't doing us any good at all, and it is wasting us money. We pay X amount every year for the upkeep of that, which is supposed to pay so that you guys can train people on that. School is in 11 days. 11 days, and we don't have bus routes. The bus drivers, my run came back and half my run is missing. I don't know whether or not I have a job come the beginning of the school. I don't know whether I have a run or not. And then whether I've got to go out in COVID world and try to find a new job, I don't know. So you guys asked me whether or not you were going to have enough bus drivers. I can't answer that for you because I don't have all the information. I have no idea.
Lisa, thank you for sharing that. I assume Dr. Craig will check with the administration and with the team and hope that's, if there is an issue, hope we can get it resolved in the next couple of days.
Yes. Yeah, at this point, I'm not aware that we had any issues with the bus routes getting down there, but I'll certainly take a look into it.
Maybe it was a miscommunication, but thank you for sharing your observations. Follow up. Yes, Mr. Smith.
Okay, so I gotta ask, is it that none of you want to face us and tell us what you think on this, or are we just not worth your time? Because that's really what it's coming down to now. I come to these meetings, you guys, I don't know what you think. I don't hear your voices. I don't hear you guys discuss this. I truly want to know what you guys think. Even if you all disagree with me, which you guys obviously do, but still, I want to hear what you guys think as individuals. I come to these meetings, and the people I hear are Dr. Kreider and Mr. Shriver running the meeting, and you guys make odd motions here and there and ask questions during the reports, but you guys never discuss anything in front of us. You guys all discuss it behind closed doors, and we want to know what you guys think. And as your constituents, we have a right to know what you guys think. You guys are our school board. You guys are representing us, making decisions for our school district. And we have a right to know, what factors are you guys weighing? How heavy are you weighing these certain factors? What ideas are coming in? And if you open these meetings, if you guys had these meetings in a way where you guys were talking about these things out in the open, one, the meeting would be a lot more interesting. I'm sure more people would want to come. More people come, you might have some more ideas. And while obviously other people can't vote and all that, but still, you guys could have more input. And I think we have a right to see it being discussed out in the open. And I think it's shameful that you guys, Honchar split off the thing. You guys could have discussed it. You could have even just said for 5 seconds, like, no, I think this is a good idea. But no, not even one person wanted to speak in support of it, even though you all voted for it except for him. He spoke in opposition to it. Not a single person could have spoken in support of it. Come on now, guys. Please, just talk. Debate. Let us see what it is you guys are thinking about. That's it.
Any other comments or questions? We try not to address individual situations necessarily, but I get your point, and on a personal level, I'll try to briefly share my personal opinion. Masks stink. I'm tired of wearing masks. I didn't think we would have to be doing this. I'm not a doctor. I've tried to read as many reports as I can. The news out of other school districts across the country is starting to scare me. Districts have opened up and have had big problems. Where kids were not getting the virus much a year ago, they seem to be getting it more frequently now. The Delta variant, again, I'm not a doctor, but the Delta variant appears to be very different. I've read a few articles that try to explain it in very plain language, and it's scary. There are some board members that have experienced people close to them that did not have a good reaction recently to the virus, a fatal reaction. So it is a sensitive topic. It is a personal topic, as it is for many of you. There is no easy or right answer. One person said we may not know for a couple of years what the right answer was. We're trying to do the best we can with information that changes daily, weekly. What studies were done in 2020 that made a lot of sense then with the Delta variant may be totally irrelevant now. So we're all collectively faced with a crazy challenge. So there's my quick personal piece of feedback.
Thank you so much.
Any other board member want to share? It's not.
Well, I would just say that as a general matter, Dr. Kreider gave a report, a very detailed report that gave all of the input that went into these revisions to the health and safety plan. So if we vote in favor of something that is given in that report, it means we are in agreement with the information there. Director Honchar obviously was not, and therefore he voiced his own opinion and voted in the way he did. So it's not necessarily up to us to need to restate every element of what went into the plan when it's given in a report. Now, if this was just thrown on the agenda in a vacuum and there was no discussion and it was just, hey, we're voting on the health and safety plan, this is what we're going to do, I understand that concern. But when a report is given and it's given by the superintendent who is speaking on behalf of us, the board, that's the basis and that's the input. The basis in this is there's a whole lot of scientific entities out there who are far smarter than we are, who are infectious disease docs and are epidemiologists and do this for a living, who are all saying the same thing. And even if you want to take the science out of it and you don't believe in the science of masks, and that's certainly your right to do so, given that we have to exclude every child who is in an unmasked classroom who is deemed a close contact, and that kid's going home for 10 days to quarantine, our primary purpose is to keep kids in person school. If we heard nothing consistently last year, it was that virtual sucked. I have 2 kids. I was working from home with 2 kids in my house with me. Trust me, I don't want to do it again either. Our goal is to keep kids in the classroom. So if you take the science of masks out of it, given that we must quarantine kids for 10 days who are close contacts if they are not in a masked classroom, we want kids in person. But all of that was in the report. So perhaps we tune out during reports being made, but that's the basis of the decision.
Well spoken. Any other board member?
difficult place to have really detailed conversations. And that doesn't mean that we should shy away from them, but it does mean that when we're looking at specific studies and specific data and specific measures and listening to epidemiologists and immunologists, that some of that happens on our own time and not necessarily at these tables. And so perhaps we could do a better job of having conversations like this in public forum, and thank you for that pressure. But it's also, you know, we have to do the best we can with the circumstances that we're given, and everything the school board does, with very few exceptions, is subject to sunshine. So we have those discussions here and do our research on our own time if we can.
Yeah, I understand that, you know, it's not a switch where you do it all one way, but the thing is that you guys kind of are treating it like a switch in the fact that you guys don't tend to have these discussions out in the open, and that's just what I'm talking about.
But also, you're not representative of the parents of this district. You asked the parents, we said no, and then all of you sit there, all in agreement, I guess, and say, forget about you. It should be a parent's choice. None of you are doctors either, and I still have yet to hear any science or research.
You're talking about a survey that took place in June. And here we are in August, the circumstances have changed.
I'm looking at data and research. I'm not listening. Why are you yelling at me? I was speaking. Why are you yelling at me?
Because you were putting your point out. They've already explained.
And you're interrupting me and yelling at me.
So, Stephanie, you're right, and I think we
It should be a
interpreted
parent's choice.
the survey that you referenced. We interpreted differently. The questions were
And you don't
posed
represent
as-
us. It's just that. You
I
don't
respectfully
represent
disagree,
us.
but I get your point, and I appreciate your sharing.
Why ask what we want if you're just going to choose what you want?
We're all voting next time. You guys are elected, so.
You're right.
You get us, we're going to vote.
Someone's got to do running campaigns, though. They got the nomination for both tickets.
Right. Somebody else has to run, that's the problem.
There's a hand raised in the back. I just want to recognize it.
One of the most interesting points I think that was brought up was that my name is David O'Brien, I live in Crafton, was that it's a parent's choice to send their kids to school without a mask or with a mask. And I understand that perspective because you know, you think you have the responsibility to protect your child, but you're not there. You're not there to protect your child at school. These elected officials have to take a whole bunch of sources of information and make decisions to protect your child because you're not there at school. You don't know what your child does at school. You don't know who they talk to. You don't know who they're interacting with. You don't know the dangers. You send your kid to school based on faith that these elected officials and the teachers and the administrators and other kids in that classroom are acting in a safe manner. So it's not your choice anymore. It's basically their responsibility because you choose to give them that responsibility. Thank you.
One last point. One of the articles that I've used for my own personal digesting of information, I brought a copy with me. If anybody wants to see it, I'll leave it up here. It just talks about the Delta variant. It's one of thousands of documents, but if anyone wants to see the specific document, one of the documents I'm referencing, I have a copy up here. Any other final comments from the board? If not, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Moved up a second, moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. We are adjourned.